Our main question today is, can a work of fiction serve as a real historical document? Can imaginary characters and made up events teach us something true about a medical crisis? The answer is yes. We will explore this through Maupin's famous Tales of the City series. Maupin began writing the series in 1976 as a daily column for the San Francisco Chronicle. Each day, he published a short chapter following a group of friends living at 28 Barbary Lane in San Francisco. The characters included gay men, straight women, and transgender people who formed a chosen family. Because Maupin wrote in real time, day by day his columns accidentally became a diary of San Francisco itself. In the late 1970s, the tone was light and joyful, celebrating gay liberation and sexual freedom. But when the 1980s arrived, a mysterious illness began killing young gay men. The comedy faded, characters got sick, they started dying. Today, we will learn why this serialized fiction is so valuable for understanding the HIV/AIDS crisis and also what the novels left out. Most novels are written with hindsight. The author knows how the story ends. A novel about the 1980s written today already knows that HIV is the virus, that treatments were eventually developed, and that the government failed. This knowledge shapes the story into a neat, orderly shape. Maupin did not have this luxury. He wrote day by day in the absolute present. In 1981, when the first cases appeared, no one knew what was happening. Doctors called it gay cancer. There was no test, no name, no treatment. Imagine living through that. Your friends get sick, lose weight, develop purple spots, and die. No one can tell you why. The government is silent. The president won't even say the word AIDS. The daily serial format allowed Maupin to capture this confusion in real time. His columns recorded rumors, fear, and the slow dawning horror of a community realizing something terrible was happening. This is why scholars call the novel an alternative archive. Official records give us numbers, they tell us how many died, but they don't tell us what it felt like to watch your best friend waste away. Maupin's fiction preserves those human details. Another major theme is urban geography. The places where people live shape their experience of health and disease. In the 1970s, San Francisco was a sanctuary for queer people. Thousands fled small towns where they were beaten and rejected. They came to be free. Neighborhoods like the Castro became vibrant centers of gay life with bars, bathhouses, and street festivals. Maupin's fictional apartment at 28 Barbary Lane represents this sanctuary. The landlady, Anna Madrigal, is a transgender woman who creates a safe harbor where everyone is accepted. But when AIDS arrived, this geography transformed. The same streets that once celebrated liberation became haunted by illness. Young men with canes walked slowly, stores closed, newspapers filled with obituaries, bars emptied, bathhouses shut down. Scholars call this shift from heterotopia, a space of freedom, to necropolis, a city of the dead. Maupin's novel maps this geographical trauma. When a character walks past a certain bar or park, the reader knows that place is now saturated with memories of lost friends. The physical environment becomes a graveyard. Medical crises are not just biological events, they are also geographical events. In the early years of AIDS, mainstream doctors and media treated gay men as objects of disgust. The disease was called gay cancer or gay related immune deficiency, implying that being gay was itself a disease. Hospitals treated AIDS patients horribly. Nurses wore full protective gear. Some hospitals refused to admit them at all. Many gay men died alone, isolated behind plastic screens. because families abandoned them and partners were not legally recognized. Maupin's novel resists this dehumanization. When his character Michael Mouse Tolliver becomes HIV positive, the narrative does not reduce him to a medical case study. He remains a full, complex human being. He still makes jokes, falls in love, wants physical intimacy, and has political opinions. The text insists that even a body living with a deadly virus is worthy of dignity, touch, and joy. This was a radical statement in the 1980s. It challenged the cold clinical gaze that wanted to reduce gay men to contaminated fluids and tragic statistics. This is called demedicalization, stripping away medical labels to see the whole person as a political act of resistance. One of the important things Tales of the City documents is the rise of chosen families. In the 1980s, the government abandoned the queer community. President Reagan did not say the word AIDS publicly until 1985, even though thousands were already dead. Federal funding was blocked by politicians who celebrated the death of gay men as divine punishment. At the same time, many biological families rejected their sick gay sons. Parents refused to visit hospitals, stripped children from wills, and banned partners from funerals. In the face of this double abandonment, the queer community built its own healthcare system. Friends became nurses, lovers became hospice workers, communities organized to cook meals, clean apartments, manage medications, and hold dying bodies through feverish nights. We see this clearly in Maupin's novel. The residents of 28 Barbary Lane care for each other. Anna Madrigal becomes a primary caregiver. Straight and queer housemates share the burden. They do not wait for the state to save them, they save each other. The most effective frontline health workers during the AIDS crisis were often not doctors or nurses but chosen families acting out of love and necessity. In the early years of AIDS, grief was private and shameful. Many families hid the cause of death. Obituaries used vague phrases like died after a short illness. People were afraid to say the word AIDS out loud. But as the death toll climbed into the tens of thousands, silence became impossible. The community realized that private grief was a form of political suicide. This realization gave birth to a new kind of activism. Organizations like ACT-UP staged dramatic protests, held die-ins on the doorsteps of pharmaceutical companies, blocked traffic, dumped the ashes of dead lovers on the White House lawn, and chanted silence is equal to death. Maupin's novel records this transition. His characters move from shock and isolation to rage and mobilization. One of the most famous movements is Michael Tolliver's letter to his parents in Florida. He tells them he is gay and HIV positive. He does not ask for approval, he simply states the truth. This act of coming out in the face of death is a political declaration. The novel shows us that mourning can be militant, grief can be weaponized, and tears can be fuel for justice. We must also be honest about the limitations of Maupin's vision. The world of 28 Barbary Lane is wonderful but privileged. The characters are mostly white and middle class. They have housing, security, and social capital. But the real AIDS crisis was much more brutal for poor people and people of color. In the neighborhoods like the Tenderloin, homeless people, transgender sex workers, and drug users died in huge numbers. They did not have cozy apartments or supportive chosen families. They were excluded from drug trials and ignored by hospitals. When the first AIDS drugs became available, they were very expensive. Wealthy white gay men could often access them. Poor people could not. The same virus killed everyone, but the medical system treated people very differently based on race, class, and housing status. An archive like Tales of the City is invaluable, but it is not complete. We must always ask whose story is being told and whose is being left out. Why should we care about a novel from the 1980s today? Because the same patterns have repeated themselves. When COVID 19 arrived, we saw the same failures. government minimization, polarized public health measures, and vulnerable populations treated as acceptable sacrifices. And just like in the 1980s, communities built their own systems of care. Reading Tales of the City today gives us a historical playbook. It reminds us that when the state abandons its citizens, the only real public health system is community care. Private grief must become public rage. Chosen families save lives.